This isn't the first time I've lost a job. And it isn't the first time it happened after years of loyal service to a company, a workplace, and people who slowly became familiar, almost like family. I still clearly remember a day more than 15 years ago, during the 2008 financial crisis. The company was struggling, and my very first boss had to make cuts. He didn't send an email. He didn't have HR deliver the news. He called me into his office. I remember him making a cup of hot coffee himself. Strong, American-style black coffee. Nothing fancy. The same kind we drank every morning at the office. He closed the door, sat across from me, and looked me straight in the eye. No avoidance. No rehearsed lines. Then, he apologized. In his eyes, I saw real discomfort. Not polite regret, but the pain of someone who knows a decision will hurt another human being. I felt a kind of respect between people, something that used to be a natural part of American workplace culture back then. When the conversation ended, I stood up to leave. He stood up as well, reached out, shook my hand firmly, and said, "Thank you for everything you've done for the company." No cameras, no paperwork, just a real handshake. That warmth mattered. It told me that even though the contract had ended, my value as a person hadn't disappeared. I changed jobs a few more times after that, but 2025 felt completely different. There was no coffee, no handshake, not even eye contact. The only thing that greeted me was an email from a no-reply address. Colder still was the notice about access changes. My badge no longer opened the familiar parking gate. No one looked at you one last time. No one asked if you were okay. You simply disappeared from the system. There's a bitter truth our generation has had to face in 2025. In the past, losing a job meant losing income. We were sad, but we could still walk out with our heads held high. Today, the way we're pushed out makes it feel like we're losing more than a job. It feels like we're losing a piece of our dignity. Over 50 years old. The age when people are supposed to be calmly talking about retirement, and yet here I am, sitting with a sinking feeling as the numbers in my bank account shrink day by day. That sense of helplessness eats away at a man's self-respect more brutally than any insult ever could. It makes you ask yourself, did all those years of effort really end like this? But during those months at the bottom, when the noise of status and ambition finally went quiet, I began to hear something else, the sound of truth. Look at the list of people who were let go at the same time you were. Not to compare yourself to them, but to force yourself to see an uncomfortable truth. They weren't interns fresh out of school, and they weren't the untouchable names at the very top of the org chart. They looked exactly like you. They were the HR directors who stayed late to clean up other people's messes, the project managers living inside a maze of overlapping deadlines, the operations heads who picked up the phone at midnight when the system crashed. We were the middle layer. No spotlight, no absolute power, but we were the ones who kept things from falling apart. We used to be called the backbone of the company. And in 2025, that backbone was the first thing to snap. What came after that unemployment period looked a little different for each of us. But there are things we all recognize. Losing a job doesn't just erase your title overnight. You don't just see it on paper. You feel it in the texture of daily life. In coffee meetings that suddenly feel quieter than usual. Maybe because our minds have gone quiet. Maybe because there's no one left to meet, no friends, no clients. And in the small, silent nod exchanged between people like us, a wordless way of saying, I know how hard this is. And you're still sitting there, drifting back to thoughts from your working years. Not because you want to, it's just the silence. The phone that no longer lights up, the email inbox with no new notifications, the empty calendar that used to be packed with meetings and to-do lists. And then it hits you in the morning, when you open your eyes and realize that for the first time in years, you don't know where you belong. Those thoughts arrive on their own. You can't stop them. That's when the loneliness peaks. You start wondering if anyone even has the time to notice how we're really doing. But everyone else is busy with their own lives, their own worries. That's just the rule of life. We understand it. Most of life, when you're honest, is lived alone. And the financial pressure stops being a distant noise and becomes a constant hum. The bills keep showing up every month, right on time. The mortgage, health insurance, car payments, school expenses. As the bills arrive while the bank balance drops, the brain starts firing off anxiety signals, and the first reaction is usually self-blame. Why didn't I prepare better when I had the chance? Why did I waste so much time and money on meaningless consumption? Why did I assume that everything would somehow just work out? But life doesn't have what-ifs. And those questions, even if you answer them, don't actually matter. So why do we get stuck in them? What do they give us, other than emotional exhaustion and a slow erosion of our mental health? So which question is actually worth answering? What really happened in 2025 and not at some other time? Maybe the problem isn't that we failed. Maybe the problem is that we believed in a story that no longer exists. We grew up with an unwritten contract from the 20th century, a quiet agreement that said if you stayed loyal, the company would take care of you, and if you worked hard enough, your position would be secure. And at the end of that long career, there would be a calm retirement waiting. That contract was real once, at least long enough for many of us to build entire lives around it. Homes, families, status, and the belief that if we did everything right, the system would remember us. But the world moved faster than that promise, or more precisely, that promise expired around 2025. When AI exploded into the workplace, when a digital assistant could suddenly do work that was labeled more efficient than real human labor at a fraction of the cost, when companies learned how to move faster than people, when decisions stopped being shaped by memory or loyalty and started being driven almost entirely by Excel spreadsheets and quarterly numbers. Every calculation became a cost-benefit equation, and suddenly, experience was no longer treated as an asset. It became a cost. And once that happened, the outcome was inevitable. Economists have cold, technical names for this: a white-collar recession, the Great Management Unbundling, a systemic purge of the leadership layer. But for us, this isn't a headline in a business journal. It's happening every day, every hour, inside companies across the United States. It's happening right here, in real time, in our living rooms. It's hitting the careers we spent decades building, reshaping financial plans, mental health, and family life. And does any of that matter to the system? No. What matters is efficiency. Look at the numbers, even if they make you uncomfortable. These are the things never mentioned in year-end meetings. More than half of workers over 50 who lose their jobs didn't choose to leave. They didn't retire early. They were pushed out, not because they suddenly became lazy, not because their skills disappeared overnight, but because, under the way organizations operate today, they no longer fit the most efficient model. This isn't a moral judgment, it's a calculation. Companies are willing to accept a 20% drop in quality in exchange for costs that are 9 or 10 times lower. The system never says this out loud. It doesn't need to. It whispers it through performance reviews that end a little too quickly, through polite thank you emails that sound automated, through calendar invites that last 15 minutes, followed by access quietly disappearing. And when that happens, we turn inward. we blame ourselves, and we start calling it failure. But take a step back for a moment. This isn't the story of a few unlucky people. This is what it feels like to belong to a generation caught between two eras. A generation forced to stand on the front line for decisions that were likely rushed during a period of transition. And if this isn't just personal failure, then it's time to step back again and look at the bigger picture. The mediocrity trap. Look at a hard truth as it stands right now. In early 2026, AI is still a tool for aggregation and prediction, not creativity or empathy. It's extremely good at speed, at processing large data sets, writing basic code, generating templated content, producing standardized reports. But when it comes to crisis management, complex human negotiation, understanding cultural nuance, and most importantly, taking responsibility, the gap between AI and humans is still wide. And yet companies are acting as if AI is already perfect enough to replace us, making cold decisions to lay people off and optimize headcount. What they're really doing is placing a bet called the mediocrity trap. The 80-20 rule applies here. If AI can do 80% of the work of a seasoned employee at 1/100th of the cost, many CFOs are willing to throw away the remaining 20% of quality. For example, an article written by AI may not be as good as one written by an experienced writer, but it's good enough to fill a website. A customer service chatbot may be clumsier than a dedicated call center agent, but it's free and available 24/7. You weren't laid off because AI is better than you. You were laid off because AI is shockingly cheaper, and leadership is betting that customers will tolerate lower quality. And when those decisions are made in haste, the first casualties of the new era are people like us, experienced enough to be expensive, senior enough to be slower to pivot, and not powerful enough to protect ourselves when growth charts begin driving every decision. Saying these things out loud doesn't change the fact that the decisions have already been made, and the cost of that haste may not show up immediately. But seeing the truth clearly allows us to stop blaming ourselves and begin preparing for the rebuilding phase in 2026. At some point, we're forced to accept a truth that isn't easy to hear. That job is over. That role has ended. And the version of the world we once knew is not coming back. Not because you didn't try hard enough, not because you missed some obvious opportunity, but because an old era is closing and the world is turning towards something new. The journey into 2026 is genuinely different. The first step is finding yourself again. For many years, our lives ran on momentum. Business meetings, deadlines, KPIs. There was always somewhere to go, someone to answer to, something to prove. Losing a job takes a lot away: income, structure, status, but it also strips away a dangerous illusion, the idea that our value only exists inside that system. That without a title, without a calendar, without meetings, we somehow become meaningless. Is that really true? I don't think so. From the moment we're born, our existence has meaning on its own. In some form, we just forgot it. And this moment, uncomfortable as it is, forces us to look clearly at our identity and our value. To ask what it actually means to live a meaningful life. There's a strange paradox at this stage of life. We think we've already figured everything out, and then disruption arrives and wakes us up to who we really are. This isn't a moment for celebration, but it's no longer a moment for running away either. The old doors are closed. The locks have been changed. The era of lifetime jobs and borrowed stability is over. And we can't live a full, meaningful life while constantly worrying about survival. That means we need a very concrete financial plan for 2026. The second step isn't work, it's finances, so we can regain a long-term view. Sit down, look directly at the numbers. What's essential? What can be cut? what can be postponed, and even which things, once considered luxuries, may need to be sold. Not to live in hardship, but to extend your runway. When you know how long you can sustain yourself, your mind begins to settle. And when you're calmer, you make decisions that don't sabotage the future. Work comes third. Unless you're a multi-millionaire living off a massive investment portfolio, work is necessary to support yourself and your family. That's just reality. Here's a truth that isn't easy to hear. The data shows that when you lose a job at this stage, the average time to find another one isn't weeks or a few months. It's 7 to 9 months, nearly a year. And the reason isn't mysterious. While younger workers can switch roles quickly, accept lower pay, and retrain from scratch, our resumes tend to fall into a very specific category. Too experienced to retrain, too expensive to hire. The reality is that many people at this stage don't return to their previous roles. They take jobs below their former level. Income drops, titles shrink. This isn't failure. This is underemployment, a transitional state that many people have to pass through. So what's our advantage? Experience and a serious work ethic that often surpasses younger generations. Use that. In this new era, work doesn't only exist inside cold concrete offices. It's everywhere online. Choose something you can learn and do. Teaching English online, podcasting, freelance work, part-time consulting for business projects, writing, blogging. We don't have the luxury of resisting change. We have to adapt. The key is understanding that this isn't where you stop. It's where you stand for now. A part-time job, a freelance contract, a role with fewer labels attached. It doesn't define who you are. It simply keeps you from being swept away. At the same time, we start learning again, not to compete with younger people, but to make sure our existing experience still has a place. Learning how to work with new tools, learning just enough to stay in the game, and learning some of the things we once wanted to explore when we were younger, but never had the chance to pursue. And we can't ignore the most important part, mental and physical health. Sleeping a little better, walking more, paying closer attention to the body, not brushing off small signals we used to ignore. Talking with people who don't ask what your title is, not to heal everything, just to stay upright during this transition. Once you have a clear plan, there's no need to panic anymore. And when the panic settles, you can begin planning around time, not just outcomes. The goal isn't to rush forward, but simply to keep yourself upright during this transition. 2026 doesn't have to be a dramatic comeback year. It only needs to be a year where you move more slowly, more steadily, and with intention. We don't fix an entire life in 1 year. We just make sure it doesn't keep sliding. And sometimes, doing today's work well is already enough to open the door to tomorrow. There's one thing I learned during this season. Life doesn't always need a big answer. Sometimes, it just needs you to stay with quieter mornings, with steadier breathing, with slower steps taken on purpose. You may no longer stand where you once stood. You may no longer carry the role you used to. You may no longer be called by the name you once answered to. But you're still here, and that means the story isn't over. Some seasons in life aren't meant for shining. They're meant for rearranging, for settling, for letting go of what no longer belongs. If 2025 was the year things were taken too quickly, then maybe 2026 doesn't need to be the year you take everything back. And when you stand still long enough, you begin to notice something. This silence isn't empty. It's making room for what comes next. After all, tomorrow is another day.